Revenge with Karen. I knew I was about to get screwed the second my boss wouldn't make eye contact on the Zoom call. His face was half lit by a ring light like he was auditioning for a ghost hunting reality show, and the PowerPoint slide behind him literally said, Restructure 2025, Streamlining for Growth. Somewhere between bullet point 3 and 4, right after Q2 spend reductions, and before post-cut morale initiatives, he hit me with it. Been selected as part of the 30% optimization effort. Effective immediately. Selected, like a prize ham. He said it like he was reading a lunch menu. Didn't even use my name until the end, and only then to thank me for my years of service and dedication. I'd been at VetraTech for 5 years. I wasn't just some headcount. I was the one who remembered that David from Northridge always wanted 6 a.m. meetings because of his twins' swim practice, the one who sent flowers when Linda's cat died, the one who pulled an all-nighter to fix a billing issue before the lawyers jumped in. But none of that showed up on a spreadsheet, so apparently none of it mattered. He called it trimming the fat. I call it severing the artery. And hey, since 97% of you listen to stories like this without subscribing, yeah, we see the stats. Maybe throw us a like or hit that follow. It keeps this little engine of revenge running. Trust me, the next chapters, they burn. I sat there on mute, nodding while my ears rang. Didn't cry, didn't plead. Just clicked leave meeting like I was clocking out of a mediocre training webinar. Then I went to the office one last time. No fanfare. No awkward goodbyes. Just me, a cardboard box, and Eugene, my tiny half-dying desk plant who'd somehow survived 3 winters, a radiator leak, and the great cold brew spill of 2022, zipping up my puffer jacket when I heard laughter. HR and my boss, Grant, Grant with the Bluetooth earpiece and the emotional depth of a soup spoon, were yucking it up by the printer like they'd just nailed a punchline. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read the body language like a damn textbook. Shoulder pats, smirks. One of them mimed a salute. And just like that, the little bubble of professionalism I'd kept wrapped around myself popped. I didn't say anything, just stared through the glass like a ghost haunting my own career. Eugene sat in my hands like a silent witness. And in that moment, I made a promise not to make a scene, not to slash tires or light a dumpster fire in the parking lot. No, I'd make them feel it, quietly, efficiently, fatally. Let them think I was gone. Let them believe I was non-essential. They were about to learn what happens when you fire the only person your clients actually trust. It wasn't the one doing tequila shots with clients at conferences or bragging about strategic alignment on LinkedIn. I was the one fixing everything after the tequila wore off, and the client realized their onboarding documents were a flaming mess. You know the voice people trust when they're pissed off and ready to yank their contract. That was me. Half the time I wasn't even in the CRM notes because the calls happened after hours, on my personal cell. I sat cross-legged in my apartment, eating cold pad thai and talking some VP down from a ledge over a missing invoice. There was the time the system glitched and auto-renewed all contracts without discounts for legacy clients. 15 accounts. Total disaster. Grant had already drafted a "We value your business" email that read like it came from a toaster. I rewrote the messaging, called each client individually, and got 14 of them to stay. 15th sent me a Christmas card anyway. My name was never on the slide deck, but the retention metric was. They loved to say team win in meetings. Funny how team always meant Grant when the numbers were good, and process breakdown when I brought up something slipping through the cracks. The executive report every quarter looked clean because I was scrubbing behind the scenes like a one-woman janitorial crew with a psychology degree. I knew which clients hated emojis, which ones would ghost if you used the word synergy, and who needed to be asked about their golden retriever before they'd sign anything. I remember this one time in March, end of quarter madness, and a high-value client from Austin called me in a blind panic at 11:47 p.m. Her renewal contract had the wrong start date, and someone had CC'd the wrong legal team. If it wasn't fixed before midnight, her compliance would be out of whack. Her COO would rain hellfire. I didn't go through the ticket system. I didn't forward it to accounts. I fixed it myself. I redlined it, got approval from our midnight shift legal assistant in Singapore, and sent her a clean PDF before 12:05. She cried. I mean, literally cried. She said, "You saved my job." All I said back was, "Happy to help, Laura." Grant never knew about it, or if he did, thought the numbers just magically stayed stable because he wore a blazer on Thursdays. Over 5 years, I had my hands in 90% of our top-tier accounts. Quietly, without credit, without title bumps. They thought of me as part of the company. Hell, some of them thought I was in charge. And why wouldn't they? I was the one who remembered their daughter's graduation, their vendor allergy list, their Q4 billing cycle quirks. But Grant thought success came from PowerPoints and buzzwords. He gave speeches. I gave results. The real kick in the teeth, my performance reviews were always glowing, but somehow never promotable. Grant would say I was essential to continuity, invaluable in the trenches, and then end it with, "But you're a little too operational, not quite strategic enough for upward mobility." As if knowing what makes people stay isn't the most strategic damn thing you can do. So yeah, he said, trimming the fat. He thought he was cutting someone invisible. He didn't realize I'd been holding the company together with a phone charger and emotional labor. He didn't just fire an employee. He amputated the trust his entire client base was built on. And now they were about to learn what it really means to lose your nerve center. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. About a week after I left, I got a text from Melissa, who's to sit across from me in the open plan zoo they called an office, saying they brought in 2 new account managers to replace you. Combined, they've got 6 months of experience. Total, I nearly spit out my coffee. 2 kids, straight out of college. One of them used to intern in marketing, and the other had a TikTok channel where he rated iced lattes and called himself a soft skills guru. I wish I were kidding. They gave him my accounts. My portfolio wasn't a training playground. These were million-dollar contracts. Clients with no patience for buzzwords or broken promises. And now, they were being managed by a guy who wore loafers with no socks and a girl who said vibe check in business emails. Apparently, corporate sent out some generic restructure success memo about them, full of fluff about new energy and modern client engagement. Translation: they slapped some lipstick on a pig and hoped nobody'd notice. But people did notice. 2 Fridays later, I got a LinkedIn message from one of my favorite clients, Miriam from Sky Ridge Analytics. We'd been through hell together during a rollout gone sideways. We once spent 4 hours on Zoom fixing a nested permission issue while she made chili and I ate pretzels and swore under my breath. We were bonded. Forwarded me an email from one of the new hires. Subject line: touching base for a synergistic future. The body: a copy-pasted template, so tone-deaf it might as well have been written by a chatbot after 2 shots of tequila. Not a single mention of her company's specific goals. No reference to her past 3 years with us. Just some sentence about leveraging cross-functional platforms to drive impactful KPIs. She wrote under it, "Who the hell is this kid and why is he telling me how my systems work?" I laughed so hard I nearly dropped Eugene. Another message rolled in that same day, this time from Raj, the CTO at VetraTech. Short and sharp: "Do you still work with VetraTech? Asking because someone named Brittany just told me our SLA probably covers that, which is not a thing." That was when it hit me. Not a maybe, not a hope. A fact. Sheen was starting to grind, and the gears didn't fit anymore. I wasn't even doing anything. I wasn't sabotaging or whispering or scheming. I was just sitting at home with a half-dead plant and an inbox full of accidental proof that this company, this brilliant hive of suits and slogans, had no idea what I actually did. They replaced 5 years of earned trust with 2 kids and a PDF template titled Client Touchpoint Cadence. It was almost insulting. Almost, but honestly, it was kind of satisfying, because I could already see the cracks forming, and I didn't even have to lift a finger. The silence started like a whisper. Just a few missed check-ins, a couple of delayed responses. No one at VetraTech panicked, not at first. Corporate types are good at ignoring red flags until they're on fire and attached to a lawsuit. But I knew that silence. I'd heard it before, just not from the clients. When a client stops responding, it's not because they're too busy. It's because they've already mentally packed up their shit and started looking elsewhere. And now, one by one, they were ghosting the company I used to keep afloat with handwritten post-its and caffeine-fueled charm. Melissa sent me a message one morning. "We lost Evercore." I stared at the screen. Evercore was legacy. The kind of client that stuck around because of people, not price. It spent years smoothing over their endless product compatibility complaints, even when our engineers rolled their eyes so hard I thought they'd fall out. Once, their CEO's assistant called me in tears because an update broke their analytics dashboard 2 hours before a board meeting. I stayed on the line, voice like a warm blanket, until everything was working again. And now, Gone. Then it got worse. Atlas Security didn't renew. Had personally salvaged their account after a 3-week data access outage that nearly cost us the contract. I sent handwritten apology cards. I overnighted hardware to their Denver office during a blizzard. I got their CTO to laugh on a call once, and that man hadn't smiled since the Reagan administration. They didn't even negotiate this time. Just let the contract expire, quietly, like a breakup note left on a pillow, and they weren't alone. Another day, Lissa messaged again, just 2 words, full bleed. I knew what that meant. Clients were bleeding out. Revenue was dripping through the cracks left behind by templated emails and interns who couldn't pronounce SAW. The reps didn't know how to handle objections because they'd never had to earn the relationships. They were sending hope this finds you well follow-ups to people who hadn't replied in a month. I almost felt bad for them. Almost. And came the nail in the coffin. A LinkedIn ping from Gerard, my old tech buyer contact at Fleet Mod. Your replacements just pitched me a service we already pay for. Twice, I'm out. Can't deal with amateurs. And just like that, the dam broke. Clients were leaving not because of price or product, but because no one knew them. No one had earned the right to ask for their business. And the worst part, leadership hadn't even noticed until someone in finance flagged the sudden drop in recurring revenue. It wasn't personal anymore. It was financial. The ghosts were cashing out, and somewhere inside the fluorescent tomb of Grant's corner office, I could picture it, the dawning panic, the Slack messages flying, the sudden realization that trimming the fat had cut too deep. Meanwhile, I was sitting at home, sipping lukewarm coffee, watching Eugene lean toward the sunlight, not smiling, not gloating, just quietly keeping score. The Q2 numbers hit like a brick through a stained glass window, loud, messy, and impossible to ignore. 18% down. 18. That wasn't a dip, that was a hemorrhage. The kind of plunge that makes investors sweat through their suits and executives cancel golf trips. I got wind of it through Melissa again. She was practically embedded on the Titanic at this point, texting me like a war correspondent. Grant had a meltdown in the Monday all-hands. Blamed client fatigue and market saturation. Sure, buddy. The market didn't get saturated. It got sick of being treated like a number. And with every new loss, my ex-team spiraled harder. They started working weekends, trying to patch relationships they didn't understand with people they didn't even recognize. It was like watching toddlers try to assemble IKEA furniture without instructions or fingers, even roped in marketing, which made things worse. Way worse. VetraTech launched this tone-deaf, we're listening campaign, stock photos of smiling account reps, and recycled copy that looked like it was pulled from a 2013 HR newsletter. They sent mass emails to clients with fake personalization like, "Hi, first name, we appreciate your partnership since year." One of those emails went out to a client we lost in February. Another was addressed to a woman who'd passed away in 2021. I know because I attended her virtual memorial. Grant never even knew she was gone. I didn't say a word, just scrolled, read, watched, and then something interesting happened. One night, I got a message on LinkedIn from Rachel M., the operations lead at Halcyon, an old client of mine. I hadn't spoken to her in months, used to talk weekly back when I was juggling their API integration with duct tape and caffeine. Her message said, "Are you consulting now?" Just 4 words, but it hit like a jolt. I hadn't considered it not seriously. I figured I'd take a breather, sleep, touch grass, maybe even learn how to cook something that didn't involve a microwave. But Rachel wasn't asking if I was looking for work. She was asking if I was available. She didn't want a junior rep. She didn't want a chatbot or a 2-week onboarding process. She wanted me, so I told her yes, just to see what would happen. By the end of the week, I'd picked up 2 more inquiries. One from Gerard, the guy who bailed on Fleet Mod, and another from an old contact at VetraTech who'd heard the great trimming rumors and assumed, rightly, that I'd been a casualty. They didn't care about job titles or resumes, just wanted someone who wouldn't screw up their renewal dates or call their CFO by the wrong name. Someone who already knew what made their internal politics tick. I started taking calls, quietly, casually, from my couch with Eugene sunbathing beside me like a chlorophyll-powered sidekick. I wasn't just a former employee anymore. I was becoming something else, needed, trusted, independent. And for the first time since that Zoom ambush, I didn't feel discarded. I felt dangerous. By mid-July, I had 3 consulting clients, all former VetraTech accounts, All people who'd quietly slipped into my inbox like cats who remembered which porch used to feed them. Rachel signed a 3-month engagement right off the bat, clean transition, no drama. Gerard followed 2 days later, practically throwing budget at me. Said I was the only adult he trusted in the room. VetraTech locked in next. By the end of the month, I was officially billing more per week than I made in a month under Grant's lean and mean regime. And the best part, I was doing it in bike shorts and a hoodie, with Eugene perched on the windowsill like some leafy oracle. I'd sip cold brew while watching VetraTech's job board update in real time. Urgent. Senior client liaison, immediate hire. Then, client relationship manager Q3, start preferred. Client success specialist must be available nights/weekends. I nearly choked on my coffee. They were bleeding talent faster than they could plug the holes. Some of the job descriptions looked like fever dreams, blending 3 roles into one with phrases like high-stress resilience and startup mentality in a legacy company environment. Translation: you'll be overworked, underpaid, and blamed for everything. Melissa texted me one night around 9 p.m. It was still there, poor soul. The VP just said he'd reach out to you personally if it meant saving Q3. I laughed so hard I scared Eugene. Grant, Mr. Trimming the Fat, Mr. You're too operational. Now considering dialing me up like I was a Hail Mary pass. Meanwhile, I was wrapping up my consulting hours by 3 p.m. most days, spending evenings reading novels I never had time for, or watching trash TV with zero guilt. Even bought a fancy watering can for Eugene. The little guy was thriving. So was I. The real kick, though, my clients, they were calm, grateful, stable. No more midnight fire drills. No more last-minute slide decks for execs who'd never met the clients they claimed to own. Just honest work done well, with people who remembered that relationships can't be templated. I wasn't just surviving, I was profiting off the incompetence of the very people who thought they didn't need me. And every time I saw another panicked job post, another ex-coworker message, another LinkedIn announcement about VetraTech's Restructure 2.0, I felt a little zip of something electric. Not spite, not revenge, just that sweet, smug flavor of correctness. The fat they trimmed, apparently, it knew how to invoice now. It happened on a Tuesday. Late afternoon. I was halfway through a lemon scone and reviewing VetraTech's Q4 onboarding roadmap when my phone lit up with a number I hadn't seen since that day. Grant. I let it ring until the last possible second, just long enough to let him sweat. Then I answered like I'd picked up a call from a dentist I barely remembered. Hey, Grant, I said flatly. Didn't expect to hear from you. The pause on the other end was almost operatic. Hey, he replied, his voice different. Softer, someone trying to calm a horse that already bolted. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. You are, I said, taking a bite of scone. But go ahead. He cleared his throat, and I swear I could hear his pride cracking like drywall under water damage. So listen, he began, I know things ended, quickly. Abruptly. And well, we've been having some client turbulence, minor stuff really, but we're exploring the idea of, bringing in outside help, just for a quarter. Consultant basis. A full sentence and not a single buzzword. Impressive, I said nothing, just let the silence stretch like taffy. We'd love to have you, he added, voice practically deflating. Your clients, former clients, they trust you. Still, they keep bringing up your name, every meeting. I swirled my coffee and let that sink in. Every meeting. For a guy who used to call me a great internal utility, it must have tasted like vinegar on his tongue. Finally, I asked, do you know where Eugene is? Silence. Eugene, he repeated, my plant. Little guy. Desk 3 rows from the snack fridge. You boxed up everything else. Just wondering if he made it or if he's wilting in some storage closet with the intern's dignity. He stammered. I think HR might have, I'll check. Honestly, I don't know. Of course he didn't. Eugene had more institutional memory than half the leadership team. Now he was probably withering beside a stack of expired printer toner. Fitting. I'll be honest with you, Grant continued, we really need you. We're hemorrhaging accounts. We've tried everything. We even brought in an outside comms consultant, but let me stop you there, I said. Calm, clean, like a scalpel. Grant, you didn't just cut a role, you cut trust. You treated relationships like assets instead of people. And now those people have choices. And guess what? Chose me, I could feel his breath catching. The discomfort, the helplessness, good. But hey, I added casually, if you find Eugene, let him know you're looking for help. I trained him better than most of your new reps, then I hung up. Didn't wait for a reply, didn't need one, because now he was the one left on mute. 2 days later, it arrived, the email. Subject line, consulting proposal urgent. It was from Grant's assistant. The language reeked of Grant's last-ditch desperation. All the hallmarks were there, polite desperation disguised as strategic collaboration. The offer, 6 months. Top-tier consulting rate, full autonomy, remote flexibility. Oh, and of course, the email added, you'll have priority access to any accounts you previously managed, should you choose to reintegrate. Reintegrate. Like I was a rogue AI being welcomed back into the mainframe, not a person they fired over Zoom with less dignity than a sandwich order. They even attached a welcome packet, included a slide titled Why We Value You. Bullet point 2 said, historical rapport with legacy clients. Historical rapport. That's what they were calling it now. Not over-personalized, not too emotional, not operational. Nope. Now it was a selling point. For 5 years, I was background noise. Now they wanted me back like I was a damn fire extinguisher mid-inferno. I read the whole thing twice. My heart didn't race. My palms didn't sweat. I wasn't even angry. I was bored. It was like getting a wedding invitation from an ex who once dumped you over text and now says they've done the work. I clicked reply, typed one sentence. If you'd like to make a request, please direct it to Eugene. Then I attached a photo. Eugene, alive and well, basking in the morning sun on my windowsill, his leaves glossy, vibrant, reaching upward like he'd been reborn. I'd repotted him in a ceramic planter that said thriving in gold cursive. Passive-aggressive? Maybe. Factual? Absolutely. No sign-off, no thank you, no signature, just that. I hovered over send for a second, just long enough to feel the weight of the moment, because I could say yes. I could be the hero they didn't deserve. I could walk back in, clean up their mess, cash the check. But I didn't. I clicked send, shut my laptop, and went for a walk. Let them sweat. Let them forward the email to each other and dissect my tone. Let Grant try to spin it to the board as in negotiations. Because the truth was, I wasn't negotiating. I was done, and Eugene, he'd already said no. The Q3 report leaked on a rainy Thursday, tucked between lukewarm headlines about layoffs and ongoing organizational recalibrations. VetraTech was down another 22%. The tone of the leak wasn't even panicked anymore. It was exhausted, like the company itself had started sighing. Melissa sent me a screenshot with no caption. She didn't need one. The article noted a continued drop in client retention, diminished satisfaction scores, and unexpected churn among legacy accounts. Translation: they're bleeding out and still can't figure out where the wound is. Meanwhile, I just signed my 4th full-time consulting client. All of them former VetraTech accounts. All of them pulled their contracts not because of cost, but because they didn't want to be handled by people who talked like text slides and didn't remember their kids' names. I didn't chase them, didn't pitch. I just picked up when they called. Now, I was booking my own hours, choosing who I worked with, skipping clients who set off my stress radar, actually living a life that didn't revolve around Grant's fragile ego or alignment meetings that could have been a Slack thread. I had a little website, an LLC, a branded email signature that said founder, client kind. It was soft and subtle, just enough to let people know I wasn't playing their game anymore. I was building my own. Then came the final drop, a headline. Trident Ops to acquire VetraTech's flagship client, Helix One. I blinked. Helix One, old crown jewel. The account I hand-carried through 2 product overhauls and a data migration that nearly set the legal team's hair on fire. The one Grant once told me was stable enough to manage itself. Apparently not. The article quoted Helix One's CEO. We no longer felt seen at VetraTech. Trident Ops offered us relationships, not just deliverables. My name wasn't mentioned. But the subtext, it had my fingerprints all over it. It was public collapse, irreversible fallout. The final unraveling of a company that thought relationships were replaceable and loyalty was a line item. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, the good kind. I wasn't celebrating, I was settling in. I walked over to the window, the sky smeared in that soft orange glow only September can make. Eugene sat on the sill, fuller than he'd ever been. 3 new leaves, one tiny sprout coming in hot. I watered him gently, stood there for a while, just watching the street below, the soft hum of a life built slow and solid. Then I whispered it just for me, just once, trim the fat, huh? Turns out you trimmed the trust. And that was it. No fireworks, no press release. Just one woman, a thriving plant, and a business that proved every assumption wrong. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just became indispensable somewhere else. appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.